Hi. When I ran research on Bay Street, I prefer to hire analysts with the following three characteristics. One, they did something creative, like play music, paint, or play chess. Yes, chess is creative. This helped them identify patterns beyond the numbers and gave them an edge. Two, they had studied philosophy or history to help them identify problems which resembled past ones and also how others had solved them. Three, they loved the market and either studied it in school or on their own. So why am I mentioning all this? Because today you would need all three to understand, really understand what is happening in the world and in the market, especially knowing history. Why history? Take, for instance, Trump's tariffs. What? Why tariffs? Well, I recently saw a fat, bald German economist explaining to a young, skinny English interviewers why tariffs will not work. What was my beef with the learned debaters? They seem to never have read history. Therefore, the entire interview was little more than fusty academic theory at its very conventional best, but also worst, since the interviewee neglected to note a simple real-world fact, that it is often more profitable for a state to become good at robbing other states than at producing stuff itself. In fact, the economics of all empires have always been so structured. Robbery is not an outlier, it is a feature of the economy. Why does it matter? Because all economists quote Ricardo, who famously showed that if every country specialized, it could maximize its production. Then it could trade with other specialized producers and all would benefit. Therefore, free trade is the way to go to maximize the benefit of everyone. Kumbaya. Later, a Stanford professor named Danziger codified this in mathematics and created the science of linear programming, which is the art of output maximization. And yes, he got a Nobel Prize for this. I learned about him in the Stanford GSB, the Graduate School of Business, and for a while I could even calculate LP problems in a course of linear programming. However, maximizing benefits for all has never been and never will be the goal of empires. Empires are robbers. They never think of their robbee. See? What both interviewer and interviewee forgot to mention is that Ricardian economics are applicable not just to specialization in peaceful production of wine and wool, but also to the production of soldiers engaging plunder. As an aside, see also Hugo Grotius' magnum opus, De Prada, on plunder, which most of my analysts had to read alongside Plutarch's Parallel Lives. De Prada is an important book because it set the basis for all international law. I kid you not. All international law began with the question, who does plunder belong to? After how long and under what conditions? Look it up. In fact, Mike Pompeo, former US Secretary of State and its top diplomat, went to Hugo Grotius' tomb when he visited Europe to, yes, pay tribute to the founder of diplomacy, who recognized that war is based on plunder and tribute. And so is the market, as you'll soon see. Now back to the topic. The permanent equilibrium of the economy is not the peaceful free trade. No, it is the balance between powerful robbers and powerless victims and anything in between. Stated simply, every state GDP is composed partly of plundering others' produce and partly of producing its own. And here is where known history comes in handy. For example, Rome's GDP was notoriously composed between 25% and 50% plunder. A Roman citizen lived about 40 to 50 years, often less, of which between 15 and 18 years were in the Roman army, often more. And his job was to plunder other states or countries or towns and bring the plunder home to be divided among the citizens, not always equally. As an example, Julius Caesar's killed half of France's people, some say more, then it was called Gaul, and brought all the loot to Rome, including many living Gauls, which he sold as slaves. As another example, Cato the Elder, who was a Roman senator, was sent to plunder Cyprus, and he did, stripping it completely bare, loading the loop on many ships to take back home. He returned with 2 sets of books, by the way, one of which he conveniently lost in the voyage. So the loot he gave to the Senate may or may not have been all he had taken, which indicated citizens too can be divided into plunderers and producers. That is, each can specialize in a profession, but some will always plunder others. Stock analysts who do not know this rude fact will never understand economics or the market, because if we take the above metaphor further, we can see that states are divided into mostly carnivore states and mostly herbivore states, and so are companies. Some are born to eat others. Amazon CEO Jim Bezos notoriously told his underlings to kill weak gazelles, steal the business of weak advertisers, while other companies' destiny is to be eaten, like Kodak, or today Intel, or 1 or 2 banks, but that's a topic for future clip. Back to Rome. Rome was of course a carnivore, eating other states or towns to survive. Carthage, on the other hand, was a herbivore state. It produced a lot of agriculture. See its figs, which, as Plutarch tells us, Cato shook out of his sleeves when he implored the Roman Senate to destroy Carthage because it was too prosperous and so was both a risk and an opportunity. Then, when Carthage fought Rome, it lost. It had no chance. Same for Athens, which was a part-time herbivore who lost to Sparta, a full-time carnivore if there ever was one. Yes, there was also the plague in Athens, and yes, there was Lysander and his famous trick to conquer Athens, of which I spoke here before, as it applies to trading. But herbivores usually lose to carnivores. It is the same in the market. There are carnivore companies that eat other companies and herbivore companies whose job is to be vanquished and eaten. How to identify them? See my books. The Sleuth Investor and the Advanced Sleuth Investor. Now what of today? What of the US? The US has always been partly carnivore, but is becoming much more carnivorous. No, not yet as blatant as Rome, but getting close. Do see the latest case of Trump asking for tariffs, with which I began. Tariffs are comparable to Rome laying a tribute on a conquered nation who can only yelp helplessly. Are tariffs extraordinary? Not at all. In the market, tariffs are done daily by Safeway and other retailers who are in 2 businesses, producing their own brand name merchandise and renting their shelves to other producers. For surely you don't think that Crown Cola would get to show its bottles to Safeway's customers for free. Safeway says, these are my customers. They come because of my name. So you have to pay me tribute for getting to sell to them. Top shelf costs more, bottom shelf costs less. So does Google, by the way, when you want to show ads to its eyeballs. It's her eyeballs, it's his eyeballs, and Google charges tribute for it. Or Apple, when you want to sell an app to its users. Or as the US itself used to do 100 years ago. And as the Mafia bosses do today, when they get into a new neighborhood. Everyone must pay tribute, also called a pizzo, if they want to stay alive and do business. And so did Rome. And so finally does Trump for the US. The question is, why didn't the US ask for tariffs the last 100 years? First, because idiot economists, there's no other name for it, said it would interfere with the kumbaya of free markets. But second, because US senators were allegedly bribed by foreign sellers and did not exact tariffs. Sometimes even presidents were bribed, allegedly, like President Brandon, who was allegedly bribed by China's top spy runner. But I'm digressing again. To sum up, the US government will now have again a new source of revenue via the Department of External Revenue Service, ERS, alongside the old one of the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service. The US, you see, is the only big empire on the planet that can accept high tribute from everyone if they want to sell to its rich US citizens. Although, yes, many other fake empires try this, like the EU, a fake empire, or the WHO, or the WEF, or global warmers everywhere via carbon tax, another tribute, and so on. What of other state tribute seekers? Russia is one. It has always been a carnivore state, so now it's a skinny one, post the USSR, and is now seeking tribute from the Ukraine, a rebel province, and threatening others. What of Britain? Britain too was once a carnivore, due to the Norman DNA injection in 1066, but now is a purely herbivore state getting skinnier by the day. What of yet other carnivores? The interviewee, a German national, conveniently seemed to forget the most blatant carnivore state of the previous century, his fatherland. And what does all this say about the market? Simply this: the US government financial will seem to magically improve, both via Mr. Musk's piratical cost cutting, as he looked into the all double sets of books of the US governments, like USAID, for example, and Mr. Trump's daring tribute seeking from all the herbivore states of the world who will yelp and pay. This will eventually show the US in a much better financial position than is commonly forecasted by idiot economists who have no clue how empires exact tribute. But it will also show the rest of the world, including Europe and China, and everyone else in much weaker position eventually, as more and more of their production and GDP go to the US mafiosos as tribute, also known as pizzo. The US financial improvement will help the US market shoot up, but the second, weakening part of the world will help the market to crack and go down. And so, my tentative forecast of S&P 7500 stands, as does my forecast of the following market plunge into S&P 1500s. If you disagree, please put your money where your opinion is, and we'll debate it on the only arena where debate matters, in the market's coliseum, where the floor is littered with the bones of failed speculators and the red ink of their losses. That's all for today. Please let me know in a comment below what you think of the above, and if you like it, subscribe and forward to all your subscribers and friends who they're subscribed to. Maybe they all will go to the Coliseum. Then buy my books, The Sleuth Investor, The Advanced Sleuth Investor, and if you like them, give them a review on Amazon, which I hope will be a good one. I'll see you next time, and meantime, thank you very much for watching.